Welcome back to another episode of the Full Court Press. As always, I'm your host, MattyChucks, with my co-host, MCbets, otherwise known as Mike, on the show. And we have our special guest of the week who can make time for us out of his busy schedule, the man, the myth, the legend, Jensen Lewis. Second time on this channel, first time on this particular show. How have you been? How is the season going? Hope all is well.
Matty, Mike, great to see you guys as always. And yeah, it's a crazy day of all days to be able to come on, just kind of the aftermath of the trade deadline. And now we get the sprint to the finish. 55, 56 games left for most of these teams, and a lot of teams still in it. So my Guardians are hanging on and made a couple moves themselves here in the last couple of days. So we'll see how it all plays out in a wide open American League. And, maybe we know a top-heavy National League, at least with the Braves, and then we'll see who their primary contenders are now headed into August.
Yeah, it's a good time for you. I feel like, not to say your division is bad, but it's top-heavy, and it just seems like the Minnesota Twins and the Guardians are just the two guys going to duke it out. It really isn't even a wild card worry as long as the division's open for the taking. I guess we'll just go dive into that first. And then we'll talk about you personally, but let's get the Guardians talk.
Yeah.
We want to talk about, you made a lot of changes. You got rid of Josh Bell, got rid of Rosario, got rid of Savali. Some would say you packed it up, but others might say you made the right moves to kind of go forward. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Matty, we made a few moves at last year's deadline too, and if you remember, it was Minnesota who was making a boatload of moves too, and they ended up kind of nosediving after that, and of course the Guardians go on a really great run there in August, September, and end up winning the Central. So not a ton really for both the Twins and the Guardians as far as moves at this particular deadline, and maybe more so on the top end there for the Guardians. As you mentioned, Savali goes to Tampa. For Kyle Manzardo, who I know internally the group is very high on, and a lot of people around the league feel that Kyle could be as impactful a guy, so much so that he might be able to make Cleveland's opening day roster and be their starting first baseman. Well, that got a lot clearer today as Josh Bell gets shipped to Miami, and that really not only opens the door, but also moves critical amount of salary for people that don't know. Bell was on sort of a one-year contract with an ability to opt in for a second year for $16 million. And we know the struggles both offensively and in the power department. And I think Cleveland really wanted to find a way to get out from underneath what likely would have been an automatic opt-in. I mean, knowing Josh and the struggles he's had, you take the money and be able to try and resurrect a second go-around rather than what happened kind of the first couple of months of the season. So all that being said, the biggest thing is Cleveland starting pitching. And that's where you kind of get back to Savali. The 6 starts in July were the best run that he's been on in his Cleveland career. He has had, 2-3 seasons in a row where he's had some sort of injury that's derailed his seasons overall. Yeah. And I think that was probably in the back of Cleveland's front office's mind is, we've seen this kind of happen before. It was a start in Wrigley Field just a couple of years ago where he had the finger injury on his throwing hand, and it took a significant amount of starts away from him. It took a while for him to kind of get back to where he was in this month of July. So sell high. It was a good buyer's market there for starting pitching overall. Anytime you deal with Tampa, though, there's a moment of pause because it's always like they figure out way beforehand how to fix people. What did they know that we didn't? So yeah, that's where Cleveland fans are like, oh God, please don't let this be another Yandy Diaz, Jake Bauers trade. But I think it's a win-win for both clubs. Tampa has to really guard against some of the injuries they've had in their rotation already with McClanahan. Knowing Glass now has had issues in the past. Zach Eflin, I think, just dodged a bullet there on the IL, and Taj Bradley, who's kind of been up and down for them in their rotation overall. But very excited to see what Manzardo can do. And then ultimately, guys, to kind of close on where the Guardians are right now, the Shane Bieber injury is probably the one that really hurts them the most, and he won't be eligible to be back until September 10th. But they've received encouraging news on his rehab. Also Tristan McKenzie and Cal Quantrill as well. So they may be just banking on, hey, in 4 weeks, we might be able to get 2, maybe 3 of these guys back. and try and, go after the Twins, in which no one's running away. It almost feels like an NFL division, guys, where you're going to have a sub 500 team be a division winner, find their way in the tournament, and then, as you guys know, anything can happen from there.
Yeah.
What was the what was the mood the first couple of weeks and even months where they couldn't separate themselves and get out to the division lead that everyone thought, based on the way they finished last year, would happen? I mean, even talking about like the gambling odds we talked about last time you were on, they were the heavy favorite to win the division. Was there like any panic in the beginning, or it was kind of just, these guys are professionals, they'll find their way? And it kind of, now that they did, Minnesota's legit and they're still hanging around too. So now this is going to be a race here to the end, where preseason it was kind of like the Guardians might cruise to the division here.
Yeah, Mikey, and I think part of it is Minnesota's rotation has probably exceeded expectations more so externally than internally. I think Derek Falvey and that group are very, very high on the additions of Pablo Lopez, knowing Sonny Gray was going to be big for them, and then really what Joe Ryan has been able to accomplish this year. And then you get a surprise in Bailey Ober. I'm not sure anyone thought that he would be as consistent and as effective as he's been thus far. Do they miss Luis Ariz? Yeah, they miss him big time. It's amazing what one keystone at the top of their lineup does, and how the dominoes have kind of fell, where they've really struggled from lineup construction to the point now where you've had to hit Carlos Correa in the leadoff spot. So I think they are still vulnerable offensively to some decent to above average pitching teams. I think Cleveland can put it together, even though they're going to be running out 3 rookies in the rotation. You hope Noah Syndergaard, after a really good start in his Guardians debut, can resurrect himself and find a way to be effective every 5th day out. I think this really comes down, probably, guys, to the last week of the season. It just does not feel like either of these clubs will go on such a run, in which Cleveland did, ironically, last year, to separate it and win the division by double digits.
Yeah, I was gonna say, to go on your Rays comment about Savali, I think because the injuries, I think the way the Rays use their starting pitchers, they don't have him go too deep. I think he'll just fit really well. Maybe they're thinking, we could preserve his arm a little bit like they do. But yeah, you're hoping they don't know, like, did they know something that we didn't notice about this guy, as they seem to do. But the Twins, to me, the Guardians, like, the best thing the Guardians did in a way was not have the Twins get anybody, because the Twins are the worst team in the league to lefties. Tommy Pham is basically on a platter for the Mets. You're thinking they needed some outfield help, a guy who hits lefties very well, a year rental, and they do nothing.
Nothing.
You guys, the Guardians front office must think that their phone stopped working refreshing on the Twins deadline, because I'm a Twins fan. I'm probably pretty furious. Not you trying to get somebody. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and as I said, kind of back to those offensive struggles for them, in which Correa has not really played to his capability and to that contract. Buxton has been some peaks and valleys for him. They just don't have a bat in the middle of the lineup that you really fear, and that is probably indicative too of where Cleveland is outside of Jose Ramirez and Josh Naylor. It almost feels like if you navigate those two, and even Stephen Kwan at the top, you feel pretty good with your chances about limiting Cleveland's opportunities to do damage. And I think the same could probably be said for Minnesota. Now, when you think about where the Central lines up against, the behemoths in the East, and then, of course, the top heaviness out there in the West with Texas and Houston, I mean, I don't think anyone has designs on anyone from the AL Central being able to win an opening round series, albeit Cleveland did last year in a very low-scoring series against Tampa Bay, and by all rights, should not have had the postponement in Game 5. Should have been able to play it that day. Through a little bit of drizzle at Yankee Stadium. They have to wait a day, and the Yankees finally outlast them before getting swept by the Astros. So, not to say that one of these teams can't surprise. I just don't think anyone's running to the window to try and bet any of these teams to represent the American League in the World Series.
Yeah, like you said, anything goes, and I'm sure when the time comes, if any team gets hot, you always fear them a little bit coming into the playoffs, kind of more than you would if they were good all season, then kind of steered away from that. We're going to talk more trade deadline in a bit. We wanted to ask you some questions about yourself. That's what we do on this show. It's about getting to know the guests that come on, who have much cooler stories than Mike and myself. Not to judge that, but
definitely the coolest guy here by far is you.
So I know you're talking to me, but I just want to say,
no, this side. There we go.
We have some questions for you. Yeah. Some early on in your career, and then some during your career. We wanted to ask you, when did you think you had a shot at the pros? When did you, growing up, think, hey, maybe I can actually get there? Because everyone's like, I was.
Oh, I'm gonna be I'm gonna be the center fielder for the Mets.
Yeah.
Like what moment? Did you strike out? You strike out nine guys in a high school game or something? Like, what was the moment you're like, I could really make a career out of this?
Yeah, I think it was my junior year in high school, and my summer team, the Cincinnati Pirates, back when I was there as a junior in high school, we played in the AAU national tournament, and the first team we played against, I believe, was the top team from Texas. I feel like they were number 2 or number 3 in the country in the amateur rankings, and I ended up coming in within one strike of a perfect game. Ended up striking out, I think 15 or 16. And right there, it was the first exposure to, scouts first and foremost, as far as, major league scouts, and then college, coaches that were there taking a look at recruits or guys to possibly recruit. And a guy by the name of Mike Scott, who was the general manager for a team called Team Florida, basically a national travel team, but the majority of their guys were based out of the state of Florida. He had watched, I guess word was getting around that I was dominating early in this game. And so he had made his way over. And I would say probably 10, 15 minutes after the game, he had come up to me and my parents and said, we'd love to offer you a spot on our travel team to come play basically best. It was almost out of Top Gun, guys. Like, you're gonna
no
go
volleyball. I hope
you're going up against best of the best. Yeah, and so our head was kind of on a swivel at that point, and just trying to figure out, okay, first and foremost, is this something that I wanted to do? Was it going to be too overwhelming? Was it going to be too much too soon? And secondly, who are some of the kids? Let's do a little bit of homework and see what we're really up against. And so it was a tournament that I first played with them called the Super 7. The Super 7 was in, I believe, in East Cobb down there in Georgia. And it's basically the 7 best amateur travel select teams in the country. I believe at that point it was invite only. Don't hold me to that. But basically, I was playing with guys on my team like Scott Kazmir, Zach Greinke, Evan Meek, Tom Wilhelmsen. I was the number 5 starter on our team. And just to put it in perspective, guys, Zach Greinke was our third baseman, and he was our closer. That's how good our team was at that point. He ended up hitting he ended up winning the home run derby in that tournament too. I think he hit 5 homers, or he hit 8 homers right-handed, turned around and hit 5 homers left-handed. And I mean, if you were to tell me at that point that he would not be an all-star third baseman and like a middle of the order bat for 10 years in the big leagues, I would have said you're crazy. Wow. It's nuts. But yeah, remarkable thing there. And actually, you guys will appreciate this. The team I pitched against were the Bayside Yankees. And of course, out of New York and some of the finest in some of the boroughs there. And I think I went 6 innings, gave up 2 runs. And that was the first time seeing behind home plate. I think there was about 30 or 40 college coaches there. And at that point, we were just understanding what the do's and don'ts were of talking with them so as not to break the recruiting rules or have any of those violations or anything. I mean, we were learning literally on the go. And it was those 2 outings, the near perfecto in Florida, and then that outing against the Bayside Yankees, where we were like, okay, I can do this. And I'm at this kind of a level at this point in my career.
So that's the high. Now we got to swing back here to the low. Now you're in the bigs. At what point were you like what happened when you said the realization set in, like, all right, I'm done. It's time for the booth. Like, what was basically the opposite of that in the bigs now?
Yeah, so I had gotten I had spent seven seasons with the Indians, 1 year with the Diamondbacks in 2012, and then I signed in the offseason with the Cubs in 2013. Didn't make the big league club out of camp, so Des Moines is where AAA is for the Cubs, so out in Iowa. And we started our season out on the West Coast. And I mean, anything that could go wrong went wrong for me in my outings. So my last professional pitch ended up being a strikeout at our home opener, in which it was like 20 degrees and flurries in Des Moines. We ended up getting, I think, rained out or snowed out the very next day, but we all came in to do a workout. And our manager there at the time brought me in and said, "Hey, no, it's been a tough go to start, but decision's been made up top. You know, we're going to give you your outright release." So packed up my gear. I was living in Scottsdale in Arizona at the time. And so basically, you know, drove home, had everything there, talked to my agent on the way back. And he said, you know, just keep working out, keep throwing bullpens. The hard part about that point in the season, guys, is all the rosters are pretty much finalized. And a lot of clubs don't like to really release guys unless, you know, it's, you know, just very plain and simple. You're just not getting anyone out. You're not hitting. Or there's a catastrophic injury, and then you need to add somebody, whether it's pitching, whether it's hitting, however it ends up shaking out. So I kept working out through May. And then our current play-by-play guy for Cleveland, Matt Underwood, gave me a call and said, "Hey, I know that broadcast has always been something that you've wanted to do after your career, and not saying that this is it for you, but you know, if you don't end up finding you know, a team to latch on with, we've got an opportunity here in Cleveland for Fox Sports, Sports Time Ohio, for our pre and post game show for about 7 days. You know, no hard feelings if you don't want to, but you know, it might be great to just get you know, some reps there and have some tape that once you are done, you can send to networks and see if that's a position that, you know, you can jump into." So I literally packed up my life there at my house in Arizona, threw it in my car, and drove cross country back to Cleveland. And it was about 15 hours into day one. I think I made it to St. Louis, and the Cardinals were at home that night at Busch. And it was literally out of a movie, Mikey, where Busch Stadium was all lit up in my rearview mirror. It was at night, and just this overwhelming feeling came over me of, that's it. I think I'm done. And it was
literally in the rear view.
Yeah, I can. Like I said,
yeah,
it really was overwhelming and unequivocal. And I feel, looking back on it, I mean, this is my 11th year in broadcast now. And if you were to tell me that I played 9 years of pro ball and I'm already 11 years in TV, I would have said you're crazy. Yeah. So that was completely the line of demarcation where, all right, I'm moving forward. I'm scared as hell. I don't know. All I've done is play ball, you know, and now it's not only a how am I going to, you know, make a living now? It's who am I? And the identity shift of, I'm no longer the guy on the field. I'm going to be the guy possibly talking about what it's like to be on the field.
Yeah.
Right. Wow.
That's to be fair. You're in a good spot. It could have been a lot worse.
I'm going to write this down, actually. Indians, Diamondbacks for Immaculate Grid. If it pops up, I can use.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Yeah.
There you go.
There you go.
You're probably really good at Immaculate Grid, by the way. You know what that is?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's great. You know, we get some guys in our office too that will try their hand at it. I'll tell you the one that is more of a challenge is, you know, the football ones too.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Of course we all like, I don't have the breadth, you know, the modern day players, you know, we can go through that from playing fantasy football, but you know, just being in baseball, we're such a history and statistic oriented sport where it just forces you to have to know all these different players and all these different teams. And I've never had that ability to retain it with football. So to see some of our guys there, I'm like, geez, I would never guess this guy.
No you get some linemen. You get some linemen who I never heard of, played 1 year on a team after a 10-year stint with somebody else, and you have no clue. It's like, I like the stats on the football one are better. Like 1,000-yard season for this team, or MVP, or Super Bowl win. Those are, I like sometimes I'll just do the one column, and then I just like, oh, whatever, I'm good.
Yeah. Exactly.
No, I agree. Speaking of trivia, we have some trivia for you. Mike, you can ask the first question. I'm going to see if you remember this.
So we did a deep dive, and we pulled up some batter pitcher history against you. So one player you struck out 3 times in 9 at-bats, but he also took you deep twice. Do you know who that is?
That's Miguel Cabrera.
Wow.
That's right.
That's impressive. That is. I wish I could do the little.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
There you go. All right, so that's impressive. Okay,
that was nice.
It's easy to remember the dingers probably because you're probably thinking about it for like 2 days later. Like, oh, I really hung that curveball or something.
Took you for 5 ribbies. He took you for 5 ribbies.
One of the homers from Miggy was a walk-off there in Detroit, and I can't remember where the other one was, but I know for sure. So good trivia on top of trivia. That was our 10th consecutive loss at that point for the Indians. We're on a 10-game losing streak. I was loss number 10. The very next day, we started a 10-game winning streak, and on win number 10, I was the winning pitcher for that game. So I lost the 10th straight. I won the 10th straight.
You should have played 10 on the lottery after that or something.
That's right. I know.
That's awesome. All right, next question. This is a tougher question. This is the toughest question you're going to get because it's kind of a multiple of answers. There's 5 players who had 10+ at-bats versus you in your career. Can you name them?
10+ AB. All right, so it's got to be division guys.
Smart guy.
So I'm going to say from Detroit, probably. So you said Miggy had 9, right?
Yep. Miggy had 9. He was just outside. Yep.
Okay, so is Maglio Ordonez one of them?
He is one of them.
Okay, I'm going to say in Chicago, probably Paulie Canerco.
11 ABs, yep.
Okay, for Minnesota, boy, I'll say Mauer just because he's top of the lineup.
Yep, that's 3.
Okay. Kansas City, probably. He owned me in my career, but he probably hit too far down. I don't think it's Mark Tien is not an official guess.
7.
Okay, sorry. Oh man. So I'm gonna be drawing dead on the Royals guys because I don't remember them as well. But let's see. So would Placido Polanco be on there from the Tigers?
7.
7. Okay. All right. Curtis Granderson's probably not too high.
7.
It's 7 too.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll give you a little bump here. I'm going to give you a little bump. If you went Mauer.
Oh, Morneau. Yeah. Morneau. Okay. Gotcha.
And there's
let's see.
one more.
One guy. He had 11.
11
Okay. Last guy, he had 11. You got 4.
One hit. Struck him out 3 times. You probably don't recognize him because he couldn't sniff you at the plate.
Yeah, that's why.
It was just next guy up.
Oh my gosh. What team is he on?
Minnesota as well.
So I don't know if Jason Kubel is right.
It is Jason Kubel. That is the 5th.
Got him.
There it is.
There you go.
That was good. That was impressive. I will say you were really smart going by division. I didn't think outside the box on that one. They really made you face the Twins a ton of times.
Yeah, I do remember that. I knew that lineup pretty well, and no change-ups away to Mauer or Morneau. That's where pitches would go to die.
There you go.
And here's the next question. It's a good question for you because it's a good stat. This player had 7 at-bats versus you.
Yep.
0 hits, 2 Ks. He's a very good player.
Okay, 7 at-bats, no hits, 2 strikeouts. The only guy who would pop in my mind is David Ortiz.
Now he's 0 for 6, but nice flex on David Ortiz, I will say.
Yeah, that's a humble brag. He knew it. He was waiting. He had Ortiz in his head. He was waiting to drop it. Oh, Ortiz got a hit off of me.
I knew Big Poppy never touched me.
It can't be Ortiz. Yeah. Who hit 2 home runs off you? Well, I know it can't be Ortiz because he didn't even get a hit off me. But
I know it's not A-Rod either because he's 0 for 4 with 3 punches.
Yeah, there you go.
I remember those. Yep. Wow, 7 ABs. Outside, well, it's probably still in division, right?
He played for a lot of teams. He played for Detroit early on.
Oh man.
And ended up teaming up with A-Rod later.
Yeah.
Oof. Boy, I'm drawing a blank. Who you got?
Curtis Granderson.
Oh, what's the Grandy man? Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
0 for 7.
Wow.
0 for 7.
It'll help you sleep better at night now. You're like, man, Big Poppy and the Grandy man combined 0 for 13.
Every time I watch MLB on TBS or MLB on Fox pre-post, I can just be like, yeah, neither of those guys touched me.
Yeah, exactly.
You see those guys on there in the booth?
On the dais, combined, 0 hits against me.
There you go.
There. That's awesome. All right, so that was some fun trivia. Those were all the questions we had, but it was fun to dive in and do that for you. We're going to talk more trade deadline. Who were the winners and the losers in your opinion? You can give one of each or whatever you want to say. What stuck out to you for teams? Who do you think is the biggest winner if you had to pick? Can't say the Guardians.
I would say so. In the American League, it's probably a tie between Texas and Houston because they addressed the two biggest needs that they had, and arguably probably the two biggest names out there with Scherzer in Texas and Verlander now in Houston. But I think also Texas really fortifying the rotation, getting Montgomery in there too, will definitely be, an innings eater. And even kind of a sneaky ad here. He's not going to hit, and knowing him, on the Cleveland side for a year or two, he's going to be great defensively for Texas. So it's a nice little ad for them. And he's really going to upgrade that pitching staff too in ways I don't think people have really realized yet. Verlander going back to Houston, you get the beauty of Verlander, Framber Valdez again, and then kind of an embarrassment of riches. If you want to go Christian Javier, I know Urquidy's going to make his way back, and now you got Hunter Brown too. So the rich get richer. Houston probably making reservations for a 7th straight ALCS with that addition. It's just remarkable how good Texas has been, and knowing that they've only been able to get to a game out of being ahead of Houston. So I would say those two are the winners. In the American League of Losers, the Yankees, for me, how you don't make a move whatsoever outside of Spencer Howard is, it feels like
if I'm a player, or sell.
And it's right. It's one way or the other. Like,
yeah, if I'm a player in that clubhouse, I'm kind of thinking, that do you really believe, whatsoever in what we're doing here? Do you have any faith in us this year? Because by and large, if you added a bat or two and Rodon is healthy, Cole keeps doing what he's doing, you get one other starting pitcher that can be effective. Who knows? That's as scary a 1-2 as you're going to face in a wild card series as any is Cole and Rodon. So judge me and back changes right
games out. I don't get it.
Yeah. That's the hard part for me, is for a team that you can at least tell your fan base and say, okay, we tried to add on the fringes here. We tried to augment a little bit and give ourselves a fighting chance, even with all the injuries and inconsistencies. But I would say the Yankees are probably, and maybe even more so the Twins, for being a division leader and not really getting a significant piece. National League side, I think the biggest loser for me is the Reds. And know that division too is there for the taking. It really is. I was so hoping that they were kind of going to do what Baltimore did. You'd have to mortgage the future, but go get someone up there up top. Get Eduardo Rodriguez to team with Hunter Green when he comes back. Lodolo. Andrew Abbott's been phenomenal. And maybe they just feel content. Like, we feel good. We feel like Hunter Green's close enough and Lodolo's close enough that we'll ride with these guys and not mortgage any of their futures. So just prisoner of the moment, this deadline, I think the Reds could have helped themselves out. Biggest winners, I would say probably, when you look at where the Padres and the Dodgers are, the Padres just saying, listen, we're going to hold this thing together one more time. We're going to try and go for it. If nothing else, from being in that clubhouse, you say, okay, They added a little bit there. You get Garrett Cooper there. I think Scott Barlow, a little under the radar addition there to shorten games in front of Suarez and Hader will be really good. You lose Ryan Weathers, which I think he's going to be a great young little arm there, getting an opportunity. But I think the Dodgers just need to get healthy. They get healthy, they'll be fine. So again, everyone's chasing Atlanta. It's going to be the biggest winner by far is the Marlins, and going out and giving themselves a chance with Berger, with Bell, and knowing that offensively they needed to lengthen their lineup a bit more to have a shot to get in there, especially in a short series.
And they did.
I think Miami's your clear winner in the National League.
Yeah, I agree. I actually like Miami. I think Miami can be scary in the playoffs just with Sandy and Luzardo, just in a little 1-2 punch in the playoffs, a little tight 3-man rotation. Whoever that's going to be, whether it's Braxton Garrett or just someone else there that kind of just, make you competitive in that third game. That 1-2 punch with Sandy and Luzardo, righty lefty, is just so dangerous. And I hate that I'm a Mets fan, obviously. You couldn't tell by my background. But the Braves being so good, and now the Marlins being kind of sneaky, the Phillies still being good. If Rhys Hoskins comes back, that's still scary as well. I don't know if he's going to come back this year, but there's so many things that they can do because they're pitchers as well. That's why they kind of made the World Series last year, was that tight pitching, that 3-man rotation that they had. If those guys can start to pick it up again. But my winners for my NL was the Marlins and also the Diamondbacks. I think the Diamondbacks got some relief help they need. They got the closer I think they kind of been looking for. Got Tommy Pham from the Mets, who's having a great year. Hits lefties a little good, hits righties. What you want to say about him. Got Jace Peterson as well from the A's, which was kind of sneaky. And they showed that they're going for it. To me, as a team that hasn't really been there that often, last year made a good little run. This year, obviously, Corbin Carroll, the rookie, has been outstanding.
Unbelievable.
That division's going to be tough, but with the wild card teams that there are now, they're probably making the playoffs, and they really bolstered their team. And I think they're going to be a fun team to watch. So I think the Marlins and the Diamondbacks are mine. I think the Reds, I agree with you, are my loser. They're finally good. It's almost like they counted De La Cruz as like a trade deadline move, as like, hey, because he's here for like the last month or so. But I thought they were going to trade Jonathan India. They were pretty vocal about that, and then not doing it was kind of weird. Because now it's just weird for him in the locker room. Probably it's like you made it known that because they have a lot of utility guys that they can just throw in there. I thought they could have got some bullpen help, even though their bullpen's not terrible. They could have got some other pieces, maybe some veterans to help. I thought they could have just done something. And the Brewers are not a team to take very lightly. Their starting pitching as well is unbelievable, especially if Corbin Burns picks it back up, which he has been the last month. So, yeah, I think I'm going to say the Reds are my loser in the NL. And in the AL, I'm not going to lie. You have to say the Astros and the Rangers. My loser, it's odd because I'm looking at the standings right now, and the Angels are 3 games out. The Yankees are 3 games out. The Mariners are 3 games out. One bought, one sold, and one did absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of confusing when you look at it. I think the Mariners, didn't really understand their moves, and their schedule is very easy the second half. I don't know. You may be able to dive into that a little more. I don't know if you know more about their pipeline or anything, but their moves were the most surprising to me, as I thought that they were going to make a big run for it. They ended up trading away some big pieces. Do you have anything to add there or no?
Yeah, Seattle screams a ton of strikeouts, and they had to kind of get out of the swing and miss guys. So no shock that some of those bats were made available. The Colton Wong, remember that trade at the offseason, you felt, gosh, all right, now you can slot him up there and slide Julio back to 2. Pretty nice couple of guys in front of Ty France. Teoscar Hernandez in the big trade that, of course, sent Lourdes Gurriel, over to Arizona. Eugenio Suarez. I mean, that Cal Raleigh, gosh, you looked at that on paper and you're like, with that pitching, man, they should be fine. And it hadn't materialized. So Love the move by Arizona to get Paul Sewald too. Beside him being on my fantasy team, I think that is a really great addition back into that bullpen. You get Sewald. They ended up trading away Andrew Chafin, but with McGuff, Miguel Castro back there, and Sewald, I think they'll be in great shape. Interested to see what Arizona does now with some of the additions there offensively and how they can try and run down a playoff spot. But the Seattle moves, to me, knowing that they did not give up Logan Gilbert, I feel like they could be pretty active in free agency this offseason and maybe retool just a little bit. They need more bat-to-ball guys, and I think that's where Jerry Dipoto kind of identified it and said, as we're currently constructed, we are not getting out of the first round of the postseason spot. We've got to find a way to put more balls in play.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I guess standing-wise, you kind of just want to root for them to make it, but I do think – I'm on it's kind of like what I don't want to say what the Mets did. The Mariners are a much better spot than the Mets, but the Mets are at a spot where they could have faked going for it still and not sold everybody. But I'm happy they kind of made in my opinion, the mature move.
Definitely.
And taking it to the chin in the media and whatever, and kind of just moving on there.
Is what it is.
So, what?
Is what it is.
It is what it is.
There it is. Yeah. We're going to move on.
Do you have a different winner or loser, Mike? Before we move on?
Well, from a fan standpoint, I love what the Mets did. I mean, I don't know if you could characterize them as a winner for, the remainder of the season, but I love that they got out of these.
They made the right choice.
They made the right choice there. I think the Marlins kind of took everybody surprised. It sends a great message for anybody who's an upcoming free agent that wants to land there. Miami was always kind of looked at as like, either they got young talent that gets traded away or signed somewhere else, and they didn't really attract a lot of free agents, but this is a huge message. They're kind of going for it. Kind of could spark interest for free agents coming up. So they are definitely a winner. Like you said, Cincinnati, just the sheer competitiveness of that division for them not to try to go out and grasp it after all these years of them being pretty brutal. They jumped out to it. They could have made a splash here and just kind of went for it. They decided not to. I mean, I guess loser maybe. Like you said, Matty, maybe they consider De La Cruz kind of like a deadline acquisition type of thing, but them and the Yankees just not doing anything one way or the other. I don't understand that either way.
Yeah, I have to agree. Going on to our last question for you. We don't take too much of your time, Jensen, but if you had to make a value futures bet on a World Series team that could shock some people, and then also your World Series prediction, taking odds away. Just two teams you think are just on a crash course to meet in the World Series.
Yeah, so beginning of the year, before the season started, I had Toronto and Atlanta, with Atlanta winning it. So I'll still stick with that. No odds involved. If there's a value pick, you almost feel like you go, from the American League. It's really hard right now to look at anyone taking down Atlanta, albeit Philly was able to just rise from that number 6 spot and shock the entire world. So if it can be done, Philly is a great example of that last year. I would have loved to have gotten on Houston probably before the Verlander trade, because now all of a sudden it just feels like momentum is so with them. And as long as they stay healthy with Altuve and Yordan back, it's just a completely different animal. They're such a juggernaut in the back end of their bullpen too. If I go look farther down, I think Tampa's going to be heard from here. And without having the numbers in front of me, if you're looking for a team, and I even like them at the beginning of the year, not only as maybe a value pick to win the division, but also to win the pennant. So I would say value pick from the American League is Tampa Bay for me, just because they find a way, man. They grind. That's a great offense. They've fallen on some hard times here, but I think if any team can rebound and kind of get back to dominance, it feels like they can do it. And then the National League, you almost want to go back to Philly, and because they've got the horses, they've got the lineup. If the lineup gets hot, man, it's amazing to see what they've been able to do without Rhys Hoskins, and it kind of tells you how important Hoskins was to their run last year. If we want to dig a little deeper, I mean, if you want a team of destiny, if you want a Philly team like last year, why the hell not take the Reds? I mean, it feels like they could be a team young enough to not realize what's going on, and they're just going to go out and play their game. that could be as dangerous an opponent for anyone in the National League.
Yeah, it's a team you don't want to play because they have nothing to lose. It's at least this year. Maybe the next 2-3 years that narrative changes, but they're the fun team that can spoil it and almost just take their chance, and it doesn't matter really if they lose because they weren't supposed to be there in a way.
Anyway, playing with house money.
Exactly. So I like that. I think if you want to, and they have some nice young talent, pitching wise and hitting wise that I think can be very dangerous come postseason, and their lineup is just so stacked. I thought Joey Votto was going to just hit a huge decline, but he looks still decently sharp.
Great.
He's not obviously 300 hitter, but he's he still looks like he can smack a baseball around. And he's probably a great locker room guy to have, especially with all these young guys on the team.
Definitely I think the captain. Yeah,
his leadership is up there. I was joking today. I was kind of going to make a Marlins future just because of what the moves they were making. And like I said before, with the Sandy, the Luzardo, they can hit righties, they can hit lefties. They're kind of just a weird, dangerous team that, again, I don't think I would want to play. And who knows, if you get Sandy in the game one, he can beat anybody. And then you get Luzardo, who almost you could argue the same. So odds are, they're gonna have to go through the Braves and the stacked National League overall. But as far as a fun team, I think they do make the playoffs. I think they're tied for the wild card right now. But it's tough almost with an NL team. Like we said, I think you're almost better off taking a stab at an AL team like the Red Sox or something that kind of sneak in there. Their starting pitching, I wish was a little better, but their lineup top to bottom is awesome. So there's a lot of fun teams that you think that can make a stab. Do you think this year is just it seems to me like the Braves are just like last year they were good.
No,
this year they're good.
Sick.
You know what I mean? Real. So I think my prediction is stupid. I do think it's going to be Houston or Texas versus the Braves, but I think my stab may be the Red Sox to take a little shot at the playoffs. I wish they had better pitching, but I love their lineup so much.
You're both wrong.
Don't say that.
It's hard to get.
The sleeper is Cleveland.
If that's right, and if that's right, I'm coming to New York and we're partying with you guys.
100%.
They did it last year. Minnesota didn't do anything. Cleveland made the right moves. The separation's coming. They're gonna win the division. They're gonna get hot.
I do think they win the division. It's just is McKenzie
that wild card
is
thing.
Bieber healthy? Is Quantrill going back to last year's Quantrill?
Don't forget, the Astros and the Rangers are going to be beating each other up here in August with these division games. By then, the Guardians should have a nice little cushion, win the division. You're getting home field. You avoid the wild card. And True. It's just, like you said, they should have beaten the Yankees last year for a little weird rain delay thing. And then they'd be in the ALCS. Not saying they would have beat Houston, but, I'm on the guards. I'm on the guards. And then my World Series prediction. Complete chalk here. Braves, Astros. I mean, it's just collision course. The Braves are ridiculous. Done it for 7 years. It's just like this could be like the changing of the guard, like the handing over the Astros kind of to the Braves. It just is. Yeah.
So what do you think? The Guardians can win? You think the Guardians can win?
Yes. Man alive. They need a couple of things to go their way, and I'm with you guys. The rotation health is probably the most important thing. You're going to have to limit some really good offenses in the postseason, and just thinking who they'd possibly match up with, who would be that number 6 seed, that final wild card. I mean, that's in between Houston or Texas, Tampa, Baltimore. Thinking about also, where if the Angels somehow find their way into this equation, I think would be a miracle in and of itself. But it just feels like the East with Toronto, starting to play well. It doesn't sound like Bichette's going to be out too long. they've got reinforcements in the rotation, the bullpen now. Boy, they've Mikey, from your mouth to their ears, speaking into existence, my man. We shall see.
55-1. You better put your money where your mouth is, Mike. Put your money where your mouth is. How about this? We'll place it right now. If they're in the World Series, we take a trip to Cleveland.
Done.
Yes.
Done.
That'll be
yes.
That'll be it. All right. Well,
In.
that's it. Thank you so much for your time, Jensen. Always a pleasure. I would love to bring you on for some pre-playoff stuff. Whether you are up for it or not, we're going to keep hassling you and keep getting you to always come on. Let us know in the comments what you guys think. Who was the biggest winner? Who was the biggest loser? I know all of you guys think you guys are GMs anyway. So drop what you guys think is going to happen in the comments. This has been another great episode of Full Court Press. Let us know who you want to see next week. We'll catch you guys next time. Jensen, as always, thanks for coming by.